Hello, everybody. My name is Yen Yao. I'm the Director of Training Programs for the Grierson Trust. Thank you very much for joining us this evening in this Discovery webinar for our second iteration of our Archive Producers Training Program, generously supported by Amazon Prime. Today is an opportunity over an hour for you guys to hear more about the program, hear from two of the alumni who are on the program, and also our trainer and Donna from Amazon Prime for questions and any comments that you may have that you would like to share with us. This is conversational, so please do ask questions as we're going along, put them in the chat. Just in terms of a few housekeeping things, I'm just going to share my screen. Just go for some housekeeping, and then we'll do some introductions. Can you see that on the screen? Yeah, great. So as you said, there's my holding screen. Just in terms of some housekeeping, can everybody, and it looks like that is the case, can everybody have their video off just to make sure that the recording is stable? Please mute your mic as well. If you have any questions, as we're going along, please put them in the chat, and we will, for those questions that we're unable to answer in this hour that we have, what we will do is make note of them, and we will then add them to the FAQs on our website. So please don't think that if we don't come to your question that it will be ignored. We will come to it through the FAQs, and anything else that you want to ask and don't have a chance to ask, the email address, which I'll show momentarily, please get in touch. We're here to help and encourage people to apply. We'll be using an app called Menti, which you can access via any browser, laptop, mobile, etc. What it does is enable us through anonymous questions and feedback from yourselves, just for us to take a temperature of the room, as it were, to find out where people are from. This is a scheme that's nationwide. We're looking for that geographical spread, but also because we're all about supporting people from underrepresented backgrounds. I want to ask a question around that as well. And then an opportunity for you anonymously, if you wish, if you don't want to put it in the chat, to also at the end ask us any questions that you haven't had an opportunity to do. The session is being recorded, as I said, and we will be publishing this afterwards. So if you know anybody who wanted to attend today and didn't have a chance to, please do encourage them to go to the recording. And again, as I said, any questions, please get in touch. And lastly, to make the session accessible, we have closed captions available to you, and you just need to basically go to the bottom of the screen and enable them for yourself. So that's that. Thank you very much. Hannah, whilst you're on the screen, can you just make a note of the code? Because I've got the screens up. I can't cut and paste. Can you just make
All
a note?
good. Have done. It's in the
Okay.
chat.
Okay, thank you. Efficient as ever. Hannah is our head of marketing and communications and supporting me this evening. Thank you very much, Hannah.
Thanks, Yen. And just an FYI, we can see your whole screen at the moment rather than just the one slide.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Oh, I don't know why that is. It doesn't matter. That's fine. Okay.
okay.
Okay, that's fine. And then lastly, just a bit about the program itself. I'll just minimize some of these screens, these things. Um, okay, there you go. That should be helpful. Um, just in terms of the headlines, for those of you who are just coming to this quite fresh as well, if you've only found out about it recently, as I said, the program is run in partnership with Amazon Prime, second time that we've run this, and it's all about archive in documentary. We are a well-oiled machine in terms of the model that we're using, so it's hybrid, and we'll talk a bit more about that as we're going through the hour. But the people, if you get on, and we take 8 candidates, you have 2 5-week paid placements, and what we do is to assess where it's most useful for you to go, because archive is a long process, and what we have done, and Ella and Chris will be able to talk to this, is that what we want to do is mix those experiences up, so that if you have been already got established in working as an archive researcher, and you may have done quite a lot of the pure research and haven't had a chance of actually getting some of the back end experience, that's what we're going to be doing for you. So each of the placements are bespoke. We get to know you, we discuss this, and we have a number of production companies that we are working with, who are listed at the bottom from last year, and we'll expect those relationships to perhaps be renewed again. You have an industry mentor. We're very lucky through the support of Sam and also all the different speakers that we've had last year. We're able to draw from a vast pool of industry mentors who are working in archive. We provide networking opportunities. So twice a year we host networking drinks where industry with our alumni, specifically for if you join the alumni network, you get that opportunity to network. And then because we have the privilege of working just a small number of people, the 8, it's an opportunity for us to give bespoke ongoing support, and that's one of the USPs of the Grierson DocLab model basically. And then lastly, which is very important, you get an invite to the annual Grierson Awards for this year if you're successful, which this year is on in November the 18th, I think, and it's going to be at the Camden Roundhouse. And there's great networking opportunities, probably about 700 of industry there, and the spotlight is placed on all the trainees from our different programs. So that's just a quick overview, which we will talk about more fully in a second. And then if you want to take a screenshot, or also this information is available on our website. Oops. Please do follow up with any other questions if you have anything that we haven't answered here today. Okay, so that in a nutshell is just wanted to give you that overview. Thank you very much. I'm just going to stop sharing. So just an introduction, I think, from each of us. As I said, for those of you who've just joined lately, my name is Yen Yao. I'm the Director of Training Programs for the Grierson Trust. I basically, with the support of my training coordinator, Tanya Charteris Black, is to really support all the different programs that we run. So we have our long-established new entrant program for 18 to 25-year-olds. Can't have anything more than, you have to have less than 3 months experience in the industry, paid or unpaid. And then since 2021, we've developed a program of specialist courses, as it were, which are addressing labour shortages and skill shortages in the industry. So we've done one around editing, done one around production management for career changers, the archive producers one, which is new. And then this year we've just also launched one for people who are working in development. So that's our suite of programs. And I've been working with the trust in various guises for over 10 years. I'm well immersed and know all the trainees, and my role is to really make people job ready and help them get progress, especially with this scheme. It is about those ladders of opportunity. So that's me. Can I hand over to Sam? If you want to introduce yourself, please, Sam. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Dwyer. I'm an archive producer, and I have been working in film and TV for over 35 years. That does make me seem really ancient, but I started as a student, so hopefully not always as an archive producer or an archive person. I started out in a cinema and then got my first job at Granada Television on Richard and Judy, purely by accident, working at the Albert Dock in Liverpool. I then worked on a number of different kinds of projects, LWT Factual, Eurotrash, amongst them, and then started working in feature docs. So I worked with Julian Temple on a film about Joe Strummer, and that was my first feature doc. I have worked on a lot of music documentaries, and I'm currently working on 3 music docs. But generally speaking, I work on non-scripted documentaries. I also work on scripted, because it might surprise you to know that archive is used in dramas quite a lot in a way that you might not have realised. I work with commercials, immersive projects, art installations, pop promos, and exhibitions. But documentaries take up a lot of my time. And I've just finished an all archive feature doc for Netflix. As I said, I'm working on three music documentaries. A documentary that's about to start editing about a prominent British film director, and another which is on a very sweet sort of popular culture topic. So a broad range of things, all very different. Every project is different, and all challenging but very enjoyable projects.
Thanks a lot, Sam. That's brilliant. Donna, over to you.
Jen, thanks, Sam. Yeah, my name's Donna Taberer. I'm a consultant working at Amazon and I lead on all their training programs. We have a suite of programs, 18 in total, under the banner Prime Video Pathway, and we're incredibly proud to work with Grierson and Yen and Sam on the archive producer again. I'm also a Grierson trustee. It's not a competition, but I can beat Sam. I'm 40 years in the television industry. I started as a researcher in documentaries and worked my way up to exec producer. And then I used to run the documentary department at the BBC across London, Birmingham, Bristol, Manchester, and New York when it was 3,500 people. Those were the days. I've also been a commissioner at Sky and Channel 5. I've done a lot of work in live and music. And I've been in training for about 10 years. I did head up training at the BBC. I've been a consultant running lots and lots of industry-wide training programs. Over COVID, I was head of talent at the BBC, and I've been a freelancer for the last 3 years.
Thank you very much, Donna. And Ella and Chris, can you just say a couple of lines? Because I've got your bio to share, but if you just want to say a quick few words about yourself, and then what I'm going to do is launch the Menti. Ella, first, if you can go first, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ella. I'm one of the alumni from the Archive Producers Training Scheme from last year. So was really lucky to be selected for the first iteration. And because of the scheme, I've gone on to work on lots of really exciting things, and I'm now archive producing. So it definitely has helped me massively in my career.
Thanks a lot, Ella. And Chris. By the way, I've just the guys' bios full of bios in the chat as well. But Chris, some headlines from you. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I'm an alumni as well. I was joined the guys last year for the training. It was incredible, an excellent experience. I was very lucky after it was finished. I had a great mentor and a great placement. I stayed on at the placement afterwards and at Rogan Productions. And I've now actually ended up, I'm not doing archive specifically right now, but an excellent, I'm a history student and a history project fell into my lap and I couldn't resist. And so I'm now working on House through Time, which has been an incredible experience. And funnily enough, I've been spending a lot of time in archives, but not doing archive, which I guess can be quite confusing to people. But yeah, no, it's great to be here.
Thanks a lot, Chris. So if you joined a bit late, can I ask everybody to go to menti.com? It's a website. It gives us an opportunity to capture information from the group here attending, and it's anonymous. And what it is enables us to just get a flavour of who is thinking of applying, who's interested, hence why you're here today for the webinar. And as I said, it's anonymous and it's just an opportunity for us to ask a few questions. So the code and everything is up in the chat. If you can go to that, that would be brilliant. I'm just going to open up the Menti. Right, sorry, loads of things open here. So my first question to the group is, where are you based? As I said, this is a scheme which is focused on a geographical spread. We're interested in encouraging people from all over the UK, nations and regions to apply. So thank you very much. That's everybody. Oh, that's a quick response. Thank you. So just a few people. I think there's probably about 50 people on the call, so I'll just give it another moment for people to just jump onto the platform. Thank you. It's great that we've got some representation from Northern Ireland. Okay, let's just go into. Thank you. Right, I'm going to move on to the next question. What is your current work status? B, you just joined this call. Can you please go to menti.com and use a code 76103636? What we're doing is just taking some information from everybody who's attending this call, and the call is being recorded. So the first 10-15 minutes that you've missed, you'll be able to catch up with later. But if people can fill in this, that'll be very helpful. Thank you. It was great that we got some returner from industry also interested in the program. We want to again encourage that diversity across the board. So thank you very much. Excellent. Real mix there. Give it a minute. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So Grierson DocLab training programs is about supporting underrepresented voices in the industry, and that diversity is something that we ask our applicants to describe in your own words. So in this case, bringing you here today, how would you describe your diversity? What are the barriers that you face? So if you can share some comments with us, that would be really helpful. Thank you. So that could obviously include geographical, neurodiverse, socioeconomic. With our new entrants program, for instance, we're a real big push for people from working class backgrounds, certainly returners to industry. We don't need to labour the point about the crisis that we're facing as an industry in terms of the turmoil and the difficulties that some freelancers are facing as well. So yeah, what is it that you would say in terms of the criteria and the barriers that you face?
Hello,
Hello?
I'm trying to join.
You're trying to join, what are you trying to join? The mentee?
Yeah, I'm trying to join this meeting and
Yeah, we're just in the middle of taking some feedback from the group. So can you just see a yellow screen at the moment? Is that what you're seeing?
yeah, I'm seeing, wait a minute, it's asking me this meeting is being recorded. Okay.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
I'm on the yellow screen.
That's correct. So what we're asking for people, if you go to menti.com and then you are
Oh
asked for a
no,
code.
join at Menti. I've got to use this again. Okay, it's taken me about 20 minutes to get here.
Oh, okay. I'm very sorry to hear that.
Okay, that's okay.
This webinar is being recorded, so anything that you have missed, you'll be able to catch up with afterwards.
So what would you like me to do? Sorry, people, what would you like me to do now?
Well, that's okay. We're going to be finishing this section very shortly, so you don't have, if you just hang on, once I've got more responses up on the screen, this part will cease, and then we'll start talking with our speakers. So if you hang on a moment or two, that'll be fine. Thank you, everybody. That's really helpful. Okay, that's really wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. I think for the purposes of time, I'm just going to stop this now. This gives us a really good overview of the people who are interested in applying to the program. Thank you very much. For the people who have joined us late, if you can just have your mic switched off and the camera off, that would be very helpful just in terms of the stability of the connection. So Thank you very much. That's really helpful. We'll at the end of this webinar, there'll be just one question just to ask you through the Menti again. But in the meantime, what I want to do is, Donna, can you just speak to why Amazon Prime have supported and are partnering up with us again, and who is the scheme targeted at?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So as I said earlier, Prime Video Path, we have 18 different initiatives, and we either do initiatives that cover a huge range of freelancers, or we do initiatives that are kind of very intense for a small number. And we look to support freelancers where there's a skills gap, and we know that hopefully when the world goes the right way up again, people can get work. So all of our initiatives we fully pay for, and they're all for freelancers, and people can work on anyone's content, even though Amazon pay for this scheme. As you'll hear, people work on Netflix, Channel 4, ITV, BBC projects. It doesn't matter who they work on. So we had noticed at the time when we set up this scheme that there was a shortage of archive producers. So the explosion of retrospective documentaries that the streamers and everyone's getting into meant that at times we found it hard to find the right archive producer. So we thought, knowing there was a shortage, knowing that freelancers were hoping to reskill and upskill, that this would be an opportunity to put those two things together. We wanted to do it with Grierson because obviously they're the leading body in documentary, and I know that Yen runs the really best, really long-lasting training with some legacy. So this scheme is for people already in the industry, established freelancers. This is not for students. This is not for new entrants. And it's for anyone. You could be a researcher, an assistant producer, a production manager. But you have to have a huge interest in documentaries and gobble up hours and hours and hours of documentaries. You have to have a real passion for archive, and hopefully being an archive producer is something that you want to do at the end of it. So I'll let Yen go through the exact criteria, but we are looking for people who are completely wedded to the world of documentary, really want to think about a career in archive producing, and someone who's got the time to do the training and someone who's got the time to go on the archive producer placements. But you don't have to come from an editorial background. We had people for pivoting from production management last year, and that worked really successfully. So as long as you're established, you meet the criteria, documentary is everything to you, you watch loads of documentary and you really want to consider a career in archive producing, and you've perhaps already dabbled a bit, then the scheme is for you.
Thanks a lot, Donna. That's great. Yeah, so to be clear, just to reiterate in terms of the headlines for the program, what we're seeking is that you need to have industry experience in total, because you could have, could have been broken up between 4 to 6 years. If you've taken a career break, we are then saying it's over spread over 8 years. But this is certainly not a new entrant program. You need to have been working in the industry already. We're looking for people who may be returning to industry. We are interested in people who are outside of London. If you have still caring responsibilities and be seeking a role that actually is flexible, so you could work part-time. A couple of the trainees last year actually did their placements over a longer period. So I said it's 2 full-time, 2 5-week blocks of time that some did full-time, but some actually stretched that out. So it was only like 3 days a week. So that's all possible depending on the archive, the production and the production company that we're talking to. So those are the sorts of things that are the main things, and goes without saying the passion for archive needs to be clear and clearly articulated through the application. Sam, I'm just going to come to you now. Can you share with the people on the call today, what can trainees expect to learn on the training week? And for you, what would make a strong candidate stand out?
Okay, thanks, Jen. So I'm quite often asked, what is an archive producer? What is the difference between being an archive producer and an archive researcher? And if you had asked me that question 5 years ago, I would probably have said that the main difference is that an archive producer does all of the research, but actually handles a lot of the contracts and the licensing and negotiates deals. today, if you'd asked me that question, I would say the role of an archive producer is really as an actual producer who works with archive. So an archive producer takes on the responsibility of a producer, but your remit is for the archive content. So that means that if you are enabled to do this and you're well supported and you work with a great team, you should really be taking responsibility for every aspect of the archive content in your project. So on this course, I'll be explaining to you what your key responsibilities are going to be. And to help me, I'm going to have masterclasses from really experienced and the best people in the industry, not just archive producers. Of course, there'll be lots of those, but we'll be talking to editors and producers, directors who work a lot with archive, someone in the legal department, someone in post-production, people who run some of the key archives that you will probably be dealing with every day of the week. We'll be looking at case studies of individual films and talk about how those films were made from the perspective of archive from start to finish, the hurdles and problems that were encountered along the way. And hopefully, if you see a project from start to finish, you will understand the kind of things that you can expect to encounter doing this job. The really key things will be things like research and how to do this effectively and strategically to optimize your budget, because no archive budget is ever enough. So you have to be thinking really carefully about how to use and spend that money. We'll be looking at the different libraries and how they work, because every library works differently. Many of them have databases where you can keyword search. Many of them don't. A lot of these archives are offline. How do you access that material if it's offline? How do they send you screeners? How to keyword search and working out that every single library will be different. Some libraries you just put one word in and it will throw up everything. Some libraries you would have to be very specific, otherwise you'll have to go through 37,000 clips. I really want to talk about how you research a subject before you even start on the archive research, and that is background reading, background viewing, watching every single documentary that there is on a topic, working out a timeline on a person, working out every place that they ever visited, person that they went to school with, how to put together a detailed list of things that are going to help you, give you clues to build a structure for basing your research on. I'm going to tell you how to handle the bigger archives, but also how to handle individual sources like members of the public who might be supplying material, individual filmmakers, photographers. We'll be looking at how to negotiate rights and the different types of rights that you might be expected to clear for. You will probably be asked at the beginning of a project to clear for all media worldwide in perpetuity, but you'll be given £20,000 to do that, and it will be up to you to try and explain to production how that might not be possible, but actually constructively produce a way of helping the production deliver the film that they need, whether that's through a step or option process, or whether to just clear for film festivals up front, or there are a number of different frameworks to work with to maximize the kind of budget that you might have in terms of gradually clearing for the rights. How to cost your archive and the kinds of things that will affect your costs, and how to, for me, timing is really crucial in this job. When do you get your quote? When do you do your deal? How to resist the urge to do that up front, which means that you might be committing to paying for things that you don't actually need. We'll be looking at technical information and trying to understand what tape and file formats are. What is 4K? Everyone will say that they'll want everything in 4K, but actually, what does that mean? Do they really need it in 4K? And the answer is no, they don't. We'll be looking at the legal side of things, what to expect from a license agreement, what the major studios and streamers and broadcasters will be expecting those licenses to be, how they will expect them to be worded. We'll be looking at AI and the legality of AI and its in the current situation and how that is a constantly moving situation, and how that will impact on your work, whether we should be worried about this. It's something that archive producers are talking about a lot at the moment. I personally don't think it is something we should be worried about, but it will definitely be impacting the way that you work. We'll be looking at post-production and paperwork, and we'll be looking at some of the key terms that you will encounter, the tools that you will need, and the systems that you'll be working with, and what they all mean. What's an EDL? What's a final cut? What's Airtable? What's the difference between a screener and a master? How do you calculate the durations and using calculators, timecode calculators? So that's all of the sort of practical stuff, but importantly, I really want to talk about the logistical side of working in a production, how you should expect to interact with other people in your team, the producer, the editor, the line producer, the coordinator, post-production people, how to navigate difficult situations, because there will be a lot of those. You are very often the liaison person between libraries and filmmakers and the edit suite. So you're very often put in quite tricky situations that you are going to have to handle to the best of your ability. How do you learn to push back on a situation when you feel that maybe too much is expected of you, or how do you manage expectations if people are think that they're asking for things that really are not going to be possible? How do you manage your workload? How do you navigate a situation where you are expected to be a cheap lawyer, which we all are at the moment? And also talking about the workflow of a project and what to expect with all of that. So it's a multifaceted role that incorporates aspects of every other single role on a production. So it's a great opportunity to learn about a little bit about all of those different roles and how they impact on you in your role. In terms of key skills that I will be looking out for, I mean, of course, I will be saying that you need to be obsessed with archive. I would like you to demonstrate your ability to be able to demonstrate that you watch a lot of different types of documentary films, and that crucially you can really learn and get clues from what you have watched, that you really develop an eye for watching a documentary and try and work out what a filmmaker was trying to do. What were the problems making that film? How do you think they got around to that problem? I would really like to know whether you can pick up on things like that purely from watching something. Can you work out if something was fair dealt? Fair dealing and fair use is something that you will come across a lot, and that will be covered when we look at the legal side of things. Working in a production environment will be really important, not necessarily, as Yen said, and not necessarily in the world of archive, but looking at the archive and thinking that actually that's an element of production that I think is really interesting. I'm really curious about that. Maybe I've done a little bit and I'd like to do more of it. If you've come from maybe an editing background or a post-production background or a production management background, or maybe just in a research position where you've done a lot of the archive, and not just on YouTube but proper archive research, that will all help. Technical knowledge can very often be an important factor, but it's not essential. I think personality is really a factor. I mean, if you have a curious nature, if you have an attention to detail, you have an ability to prioritize and juggle tasks, those will all be quite important. And we'll be asking questions of you of how you've been in situations where you've had to juggle work. You could be, for example, working on an archive heavy series where the first episode has locked and you're heading towards post-production, but the 6th episode is only just starting the research. How do you manage that kind of a workflow? And if you've had that kind of experience, it will be good for you to demonstrate that on your application form and in your interview.
Yeah.
Um,
Sam, I'm just going to you're
yeah,
in full
that's it.
flow. Sorry about that. Sorry to
That's it.
much information for these guys. So for everybody on the call, needless to say, what we're describing means that we will work at pace. We have an online week and we also meet in person. Both elements, we work at pace, and we will obviously make reasonable adjustments for those who are neurodiverse, but certainly there is such a lot of ground to cover. Hence why this isn't for newbies. You do need to have some knowledge about archive. You can't be starting from scratch, and you need to have that confidence. And the other thing to mention is that there will be a long watch list in preparation once you've been selected for the program. We expect you to get the most out of the program, and also hearing from the speakers what that looks like. So I think that segues quite nicely through to our two alumni who've benefited from the program last year. So Chris, I'm going to ask you first of all, given that you said you started in 2019, now working for the last few years full time in archive, what attracted you to the program? What were your barriers, and what has getting onto the program meant to you in terms of that career progression?
I think one thing that because I was quite lucky at the start, right at the start of my career, I picked up a great archive research credit in 2022 working on a true crime documentary series. And I was doing a lot of stuff that we talked about in the training. Of course, I think a lot of it was sourcing, kind of some negotiation, and I had a great experience. And I hoped off the back of that credit I could build because I really took to archive. It made a big impression on me. I really like the pure research element of it, and kind of the sourcing. And I don't know, it's something I think the focus of archive is something that I really enjoy as well. You have your very clear task that you're given, and then the things you can find can be very satisfying. But after that credit, trying to pick up another archive job was very difficult. And I felt one thing that disadvantaged me with that is I wasn't working with another archive producer, or I wasn't working with other people who worked in archive. They kind of brought me on, and I think this can happen quite a lot in the industry, as an entry level person and given archive because they see it to some extent, or at least back then they did, as quite a sort of straightforward thing for new entrants to do. But I don't think I don't think it's entirely fair. Also, I have a background in law, so I think that's also what helped me. But because I didn't kind of like get to know anyone within that circle, I found it quite difficult to kind of get my foot in the door with other projects that were based in archive. And I think it's wonderful you can work on archive projects because they can be pure documentaries, You're working on very interesting programs. And I think there's a lot of trust that goes into hiring someone to do archive, especially at like higher levels. And so having that step up to get proper training to do archive well whilst having a mentor to learn from some like the best people in the industry is all I just felt like I had the skills to be an archive producer, but I just didn't have the chance to kind of like properly refine them and know where to start picking up my next role. And so that's really because I was saying when I introduced myself before that I stayed on with a production afterwards. And then I'm now working as a researcher as a more general researcher, not in archive. But whilst I've been doing this job, off the back of the work I was doing, I've been offered another job with Rogan again. I had to turn it down because it's quite a long contract I'm on. And then also I've had other archive jobs sent to me as well, based off the work that I was doing with Rogan. And also straight after work on the training, I was offered an archive position with a company called Specky. And so I don't know, I think it really did kind of give me the boost that I needed, and then also the confidence to work in those roles. So sorry, that's a very long-winded answer to your question.
Fine, Chris, that's fine. I'm just going to bring in Ella now then. Ella, if you can talk about, I suppose, your experience, and Chris has touched on it already in terms of being kept on at the production company. So for just the people on the call, best case scenario for us is that you're at the production company, you're doing your placement, they love you, you're doing a fantastic job, you've made yourself indispensable, they keep you on. Doesn't happen every single case, but we had quite a high percentage through this program of the trainees being kept on. And Ella and Chris were examples of that. Ella, do you want to talk a bit about your experiences and what you were brought on to do, and how you found that part of it? Because as I said, it's not guaranteed. So what do you think you brought to the jobs to the productions to able you to be offered those opportunities?
Yeah. So I think firstly, an advantage in archive generally is that it tends to go on a lot longer than people kind of schedule for. So often you start somewhere and they sort of say, oh, we'll only need you for this long. And then they realize, archive's pretty important. And so that puts you in a good position anyway. But I would say if you're confident as well to sort of show that, demonstrate how important it is, and if you can be confident about the timelines, and this is going to take this long, and and you can be confident about your work, then that puts you in a good position. And I think my first placement was with Raw, which was fantastic, and on a feature doc for Netflix. And I was working alongside a fantastic archive producer, Matthew Sanger. And he said to me straight away, there's so much to do, there's so much archive, and I think if you just throw yourself into it and you show how much you can help, as the project went on, they kind of realized that me and Matthew were really working as a team as well, and having it's a real privilege to have two people across archive. You're often expected to do it alone, but sometimes a project that size, having two people across it meant that we could really deliver everything on time, and we could have someone more across sort of like the costing elements and clearing, like Sam said, whilst we still had things to find, replacements. And that's often a big thing juggling in archive, is you think you're going to be ordering everything up and you think you're kind of done, and then suddenly the edit, actually they do want to replace some things. Their creative brain is going to never stop running. They're always going to want to make it better if they can. So I think that was a great experience as well, to work on something that was a long project, really see it right through from beginning to end. And then after that I went to Orchard Studios, which is a fantastic new company. They've only been going for about a year now. And I worked on a very different kind of show. I hadn't ever done anything UK based where I was clearing material for UK channels. This was for Channel 5, and it was also quite a quick turnaround and a very small archive budget. So that was a great experience, learning how to manage a much smaller budget when I just come from quite a big budget for Netflix. And then also doing a lot of fair dealing, which is a huge thing that Sam will cover. And you will never run out of questions about fair dealing or fair using. But it's kind of something that you just start to get to grips with. But I think the training scheme, the best thing for me was, I always felt that archive is a specialism, a true specialism that you have to train for. You have to use so many parts of your brain. And I don't think you can just walk in and just do it, which sometimes is kind of the attitude. So I think this training program and just having training for archive in general is really important. And I think people who are interested, people who are passionate about it, you won't feel more prepared than after doing this, because Sam's brain is like incredible, and you will just, the skills that you need, you go away with like a toolkit and a Bible. So be prepared to take lots of notes. But I look at my notes every single day and they help me with everything. So yeah.
That's great, Ella. Given for purposes of time, if we've been going through some of the questions in the chat, so hopefully people feel that their questions have been answered. But anybody else at this point, if you want to put your hand up to ask questions of our speakers, or anything that you want to ask of the Grierson Trust generally about the programme as well, now's your opportunity. We've got 15 minutes for us to take questions. So does anybody else would like to raise their hand or put a question in the chat? Anything that you would like to ask? Whilst you're all thinking, Ella and Chris, do you want to talk a bit about what happens once you've been on the formal bit of the training, the relationship that we continue with us, but also about the hive mind that we talk about, and the alumni network, and drawing from other people. So you know the program, I always call it like dating. You never get away from us unless we break up and you dump us. But basically, it's about that ongoing relationship that we have. Do you either of you want to talk a bit about that? Ella, do you want to mention?
Yeah. So, I mean, immediately you have your cohorts. So you have your people that you've been training with, and that's been fantastic. We're all great friends still, and we have a very active group chat, and we will always reach out and ask each other questions. And that's kind of a really nice place to start as well, because you feel like you can ask really stupid questions or things that you feel are stupid and kind of test the waters. And then outside of that, obviously, you have Yen and you have Tanya and you have everyone at Grierson, and especially for things maybe more related to your general work life, just managing work, how to be a professional in the world of TV, incredibly helpful. And then the network of archive producers that I've met through the scheme has just been amazing. My mentor, Alex Black, we talk often on the phone, we have lunch, and that's off the back of formal mentor sessions that Grierson set up between us. And now we're just consider each other colleagues and get on really well. And I'm hoping to work with Alex soon. Bryony Clark, who I worked with at Orchard, she has kind of made herself my mentor without me even asking. I message her questions all day, every day, and she's fantastic. And I would just say that generally archive producers are incredibly friendly. They can be a bit insular, but in a good way, as in, it's a community for you to use. And they understand that if you're trying to track something down, someone's probably also tried to look for that thing or tried to look for something similar, or they'll just give you a starting point. So I would say that's something that I learned, is just use that network, use that community. And if you ever want to meet anyone, just message Yen and she probably knows them. So
I'll just have one quick thing to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another great network that I got from, I've only like touched the surface of this, but through this training, the archive houses we met, I've been in touch with them since, and them having been introduced to us through this program. I know I was speaking to Amanda Huntley, recently, it was last year, and she was able to put me in touch with archive producers in Germany. There is quite, when you're part of that network and you can kind of get a head start with that, it can actually be really helpful towards your work as well. And also what you'll be speaking with these folk when you're ordering up footage or images from them as well. So no, I think that's another important part of the training is what in terms of your networks.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Sheila has a question. Do you want to unmute yourself, Sheila, and ask the question, and also just scan through the other questions as well? So, Sheila?
Thank you, Yen. So my question is kind of around the I know it was mentioned earlier, sorry, I don't remember who exactly it was that said it, but so do you know that there's a big demand now for I believe it might have been Sam. There's a big demand now for archive producers because that kind of content has become quite prominent in industry. So I guess for someone like me, I left freelancing about 3 years ago, and I'm not that eager to go back to it because it was just such a rat race. So I guess my question is, what is the structure like? Is it mostly really around freelance, or are there opportunities to be in-house archive producers, and what's the balance with that?
I mean, I can answer that, Sheila. I hate to say it, but I would say the majority of archive producers are freelancers. The beauty of that, though, is that if you're lucky enough to maybe get part-time work, say 2 days a week on one job, if you want to work 5 days a week, potentially you can be juggling two jobs at the same time, which might appeal to you, but it might not. We all know that if you're a freelancer doing 3 days a week, it can end up being 5 days work in that 3 days. So it's tricky. Some production companies do take in-house archive producers, but I have to say I think it's quite rare, and in the current climate it's even rarer. However, there are fewer people with specialist skills, and so if you have a good CV, I think your chances of getting freelance work as an archive producer are higher than if you just have maybe an AP's experience. I mean, I think Yen and Donna, you probably know better than me about that.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a really good question. I wouldn't want to sit here and pretend that anybody is giving out staff jobs at the moment. People are getting rid of people on staff, so I really wouldn't want to sell you false hope to say this could lead to staff jobs. That's just not the direction our industry is going in, and I really don't want to be the depressing one. But if you left 3 years ago, I think you'd find an industry in a poorer state than when you left it 3 years ago, is the honest answer. I just want to be honest, really.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. No, honesty is great for me. Thank you.
No, thank you. And Sheila, this is the whole point of the webinar, so people can ask these questions and have a conversation about it. So thank you very much for sharing. Somebody's asking about experience. So in the criteria, we do say that we're looking for people between 4 to 6 years, 8 if you've taken a career break. That is what our ideal candidate would be. If you have more than that, you are more than welcome to apply, but you just have to bear in mind what we're looking for. So I think it's Lisa there who's asking about their experience. You've got quite a lot, and therefore it actually is quite at the upper end of what we're looking for. So you just need to be bearing that in mind. And I'm just looking at what else questions about Stuart asking about post-production. I think it's about whether you have experience of working within a production company, because as Sam had pointed out, we cover a lot of ground. We can't actually teach you things that if you haven't experienced or don't have knowledge of already, because we are working at pace. So if you have a mixture of experiences, that's fine. But if it's straight editing in an edit suite, I think you might struggle. Again, you're more than welcome to apply and see what that process looks like and how you answer those questions. But you might struggle. Donna or Sam, do you have anything to add to that at all in terms of that, what I've said? Donna?
Trying to be flexible, but as Yen says, it depends I'm not saying working in a post house doesn't make you editorial, but I think if you had editorial before you went into editing, possibly, but I'll let Sam pick that up probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think technical ability is a really great skill to have. Like if you know how an edit works, that will certainly help you. But I suspect if you've only worked as an editor or assistant editor, the bigger picture of how a production company works will be something that will be new to you. And so it will be, I think you would find the course difficult if you haven't had that background experience of working within a team of people on a documentary or factual entertainment program within a fast-paced environment of a production office.
Okay. I think I've gone through all the questions in the chat. Would anybody else like to put up their hand? Have they got a question? Or if I've missed it, now's an opportunity to unmute yourself and ask the question. If I've missed anything, just scanning through.
Hiya, I think you might have missed my question on there.
Okay, sorry, can you say who you are, please? Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Holly. So I just wanted to ask whether you consider people who have worked across audio production companies and audio documentary, or whether you would only want people who have worked in film and TV in a big way.
Sam can fill that in, but I suspect it's again that question of having experience and working within a production company and know how the screen industries work, because we cover such a lot of ground, so there'll be lots of gaps and it'd be hard to keep up basically. But Sam, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think it might depend on whether it's radio or podcasts. Radio. Sorry, Holly. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say both.
It's both. I'm not sure, to be honest. You know, I've worked on podcasts and radio shows, and the production process seemed to me quite a lot simpler. But it's not to say that it actually is. But from the point of view of archive, it felt like it was not as complicated as working in a film with pictures. But I might be quite wrong about that. I mean, I'm curious to know why you would want to move across because I think the audio world seems to be a lot healthier at the moment than the documentaries world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I've run a video team before in a more kind of promotional space, so I have worked a lot with pictures in that sense, but not on the documentary side. On the documentary side, I've worked in audio. So it's almost like a merging of two worlds. I've sort of straddled both, which is why I have the interest across both.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can demonstrate you've got the production experience, then definitely give it a go. But be really careful in your application to point out where you're ticking those boxes, because the production experience is going to be quite key.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Okay.
Good luck.
We're about to finish actually, so forgive me if we haven't been able to answer your question. We'll go through that with a fine-tooth comb, and actually we'll put those in the FAQ, so please don't feel that you've been ignored. Any questions, please do get in touch with us, training@griersontrust.org, for any other questions that you may have, or if you want to speak to somebody. And on my last thing, if you can actually go back to menti.com. So again, if you just go back to the browser, my last question, and it's just one question, well, two questions in effect. Oops, where is it? Thank you. My question, oh, missed that one. How confident do you feel about applying now? So for those of you who joined late, if you can go to menti.com, and then you type in the code, which is on the screen now, and following on from hearing from our alumni, our trainer, Donna from Amazon Prime, how do you feel about whether this is something that you are interested into following up now? If you have questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I do expect questions. You've still got 2 weeks before you've got to apply. So yeah, don't rush it. We have people who sometimes just apply on the night before. Take your time and read the FAQs and read the blogs as well. We have blogs on our website from some of the placements as well. So it's always useful to have a look at those. But it's great that we have lots of interest in the group and people thinking about applying. That's wonderful. We'll just give it a couple of more moments. Okay, I think what I'll do is move on to the next one, because it looks like, in terms of just taking the temperature of the room, we've done our job in terms of conveying what the program's about and encouraging you to apply. So that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Going to move on. Last question, because I'm conscious about the time. Do you have any other questions or comments that you want to share with us? This is the last opportunity, other than when you might want to email us directly. Anything else that you want to share about the webinar or anything generally? Thank you.
Could I make a very quick point to the last speaker?
Yes, of course, Chris.
Sorry. One thing I'll say about it, because I worked in both radio and TV, and I think this can go for anyone who's got like what experience that doesn't quite fit into being just a straightforward TV archive researcher or producer. I think I did have the mix of experience, but I think I understand that you can get skills that do apply to this position. And I think when it comes to your application, just make sure. And I don't want to sound like I'm talking down, because I know there's people of different experience. And I think especially the speaker who spoke before, she sounds like she has a lot of experience in like audio documentaries. But make sure you're tying that experience that you have with working with copyright to things you see on TV, whether it's the documentaries you've seen on Netflix, how you would approach it. Think about try and tie those two experiences together. And I think that would help your application. I think if that's where you really want to work and you think this program could help you get there, then absolutely do that. But just keep tying those two things back together, if that makes sense.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chris. Just to the point, somebody's asking about the residential. Yes, you will have your own rooms. We'll be in the Peak District, between Buxton and Matlock, I think it is there.
The best parts about this course are having Yen to look after you forever and ever, Sam who will teach you everything, and the residential and the cooking. So definitely don't worry about the residential. It's brilliant.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to stop that there because of the time.
Yeah, and just quickly, there was a question there about needing to be based in the UK or the EU. What's the criteria for where somebody's based?
You need to have a residency rights and the ability to work in the UK.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. Please do get in touch if you have any further questions. Thanks to Ella, Chris, Donna, and Sam for their time as well. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck.